MLB DFS picks, Saturday, July 27th. Who are the pitchers that are the out of the base path picks? The pitchers that are overlooked, undervalued, the guys that are lesser known, and they're unknown, some of them. MLB DFS articles and videos discuss the guys at the top. If they discussed every single pitcher and broke every single person down, articles would be encyclopedias. Videos would be marathons of 3 to 4 hours. So we'll talk about the lesser known players. Maybe we will get a lot of attention today because he deserves it. Woo! Ric Flair in the house. Brian Wu, 8,300 versus the White Sox is way too cheap. Who is Brian Wu? Brian Wu was a nobody in college. His stats were not any good. No one wanted him, but yet the Seattle Mariners took him in the 6th round. And Seattle's GM actually said that he would take him round 1, number 1, if he could. What did he see? Well, it's what we are seeing now. Wu's stats in college at Cal Poly, not very good, but something happened. He suffered an injury early in his career, and then what happened was he developed a low slot angle, not purposefully, it just happened. And as it turns out, he releases the ball at 4 feet 11 inches off the ground, around 5 feet. That is a whole foot lower than the major league average. What's that mean? What did the Seattle GM see? Well, when you take batting practice, when you hit off of a machine or a BP or the millions of swings you take during your life, you never see a release point like that. And we have seen pitchers like this in the past have really good success with that low sidearm slot release. And Wu is doing it. Pitcher or hitters are not familiar with his approach. That makes him great. What has made him greater was that in his minor leagues, he developed a two-seam fastball. He has 2 different fastballs that he could use. Why did he do that? Well, early in his career, he struck out a lot of guys. He would strike people out and fly them out. He wanted to become more efficient, go deeper into games. So then he developed a two-seam fastball to get ground ball outs, to get quicker outs, which he has done a pretty good job at. Now, has it suppressed his K rate some? Sure, it has, because he's not trying to strike everybody out. He's just trying to be a better pitcher. Walk rate's extremely low. Keeping the ball in the ballpark, 254 ERA. His xFIP's never going to be great because he's not a strikeout pitcher, but he's going to produce results. And he's facing the White Sox, 24% K rate, 124 ISO, 270 WOBA, 72 WRC plus, even cooler, 36 WRC plus over the last week, 8,300 for Woo. Come on, get on the Woo train. Got to get excited about this guy. Fun to watch him pitch. Love it. Tyler Phillips, this may not be the day to play him against Cleveland, and 7,200 is not the cheapest deal. So what's the story with him? Well, like most of the out of the path picks, most of these pitchers haven't been on the radar because A, they've been injured, or B, they were injured in the minors and that stalled out their career, or they were injured last season, or they injured to begin this season. That is something, and look, Wu missed the beginning of this year with hamstring and inflammation issues. He's back now, he's fine. And maybe that's the reason why we're not getting a lot of talk about him, because of injuries. Tyler Phillips, about 10 years in the minors, stalls out because of injury. Slowly was making his way up through the Rangers organization. Tommy John misses about 2 years. Comes back, doesn't do great. He's out of options. So then the Phillies slide in after he gets DFA'd, swoop him up, bring back the hometown kid. And he's been pretty good in the Phillies system the last 2 years. He got called up the last couple weeks, and he solid in relief, solid as a starter. So what is the story on this kid? Always had a good changeup, although he's not using it right now in the majors. His calling card's good command and control, as you can see, with the low walk rate of 0.6. Very solid. If you can hit the strike zone, if you can make batters swing and swing and miss, then you're pretty much doing your job. One of the biggest changes for him in the Phillies organization has been his development of the MLB sweeper, which has been described by several MLB analysts as a bona fide major league sweeper. And you can look at the stats, 40% whiff rate in his small amount of starts so far. So he's got the fastball, he's got the changeup, doesn't use it, he's got the sweeper. And his sinker ball, which in the minors was a 91 mile per hour pitch, it's up to 94 miles per hour in his starts so far. So he's mainly hammering them with sinkers and sweepers. That's been basically all he is throwing. It is working. He has looked good. This may not be the day to start him, but put him on your radar. He's going to be in the out of the path picks moving forward. Aaron Savali, just an average pitcher, middle of the rotation, back into the rotation guy, but he's facing the Marlins. Always a place where you can attack. Not good in his last start against Minnesota. Tough luck. That happens when you give up 2 home runs. 3 home runs against the Dodgers. That has been a weakness for him, and it is a hitter's ballpark. But although he has these home run weaknesses, another thing to point out is those 3 home runs were on the road. Those 2 home runs were on the road. He has been a much better pitcher at home. 3.93 ERA, 6.26 on the road. Facing the Marlins, who have been hot lately. But it is the Marlins, and I will trust that over a season. A 23% K rate, 132 ISO, 290 WOBA, 85 WRC plus at 6,200 against the Marlins. Savali is a pretty solid, cheap option if you're trying to spend up elsewhere. Marco Gonzalez, another one of these pitchers who, because of injuries, has fallen off the radar. And even before the injuries, Marco Gonzalez never got enough respect at Seattle, pitching, over a 5-year span, almost 1,000 innings, 60 wins. His stats aren't amazing. He's not a StatCast stud, but he produces results. Got injured last year. Seattle had enough depth in the rotation that said, all right, see you, Marco. Comes to Pittsburgh, starts the season off with an injury. He has since returned, made 2 starts, 2.70 ERA this season. Again, another guy that's probably never going to have a great xFIP, but just goes out there and pitches and wins games and eats up innings. Keeping the ball in the ballpark, hasn't had a lot, but we look at just 2 starts so far, but they weren't the easiest matchups either. For Marco's last game, I believe, was against the Philadelphia Phillies. He still, I think, hit double-digit fantasy points. 10 fantasy points against Philly, nothing to write home about, but at 5,600 in a tough matchup, just 2 earned runs against Philly. 4 Ks, I think that's what you expect to start before that, a much softer matchup in his debut of not the debut, because he started the season before he got injured. 1 earned run over 5 innings against the lowly White Sox, got you 17 fantasy points. Now, it is a very tough matchup for him, but I think it may be a little bit overrated at times. Yes, the Arizona Diamondbacks are good against left-handed pitching, and it is a cause for concern, and that is why you're getting him at probably $5,600 as opposed to maybe $6,700, $7,000 range. But I don't think it's the worst situation in the world. I think the crafty lefty can go out there and get 15 fantasy points on a good day. It is a bit of risk. Again, it's a cheap value pick. And so let's talk about another risky value pick, which I don't think is that risky. Ryan Feltner. Colorado's pitching staff's not very good. Colorado pitchers have to pitch at Coors Field. So often the numbers are not very good for these guys. But I think 5,600 for Ryan Feltner is way too cheap. The Giants, they can hit lefties. They don't hit righties all that well. 142 ISO, 300 WOBA, 97 WRC plus. Not really that good of a team. You've got the pitcher's ballpark, although I don't know if it's going to help him out as much being a ground ball pitcher, but he definitely will benefit some. And typically that's what he does anyway on the road. If you look at his road ERA versus his home ERA, it's about 2 runs lower, which you would expect from a Coors pitcher. Feltner's last start, he went 7 innings, 6 strikeouts, only 2 earned runs allowed. Who was he pitching against? You guessed it, the San Francisco Giants, and that was at Coors. So he's going to face them again, a team he just played pretty well against. Look at his last 5 starts, 2.83 ERA. 2 of those starts were at Coors. 1 of those starts was at Great American Small Park in Cincinnati. So to have a 2.83 ERA in 3 unfavorable environments, and also, by the way, some of those other starts against the Mets, good team. Milwaukee, good team. Houston, good team. Those are very solid numbers. 2.83 ERA in rough conditions against pretty good teams. Feltner at 5,300 versus the Giants, I don't think this makes any sense whatsoever. I would rather go Feltner over Gonzalez for sure. I would probably go over Feltner over Savali as well. I think probably not the day for Phillips, more of just a discussion of who he is, but an intriguing guy. But it is definitely a Brian Woo day. Thanks for joining me for Out of the Path Picks. Like, subscribe, share.